Hey, welcome to this season of Elevate. We're talking about friendships, community, doing life together beyond small group. You know and I know that we can have a tendency to compartmentalize or fragment the relationships in our lives, right? Our school friends are over here, our social media friends are over here, church friends, work friends, family, sports teams friends, gamer friends, but none of those ever really intersect. And honestly, that's okay, but isn't it true that we happen to be a little bit different version of ourselves when we show up to those different circles? Maybe that leaves us asking this question: when are we really our full selves, our whole selves? And who are the people who can hold us accountable and help us move toward the kind of full life that Jesus talked about? Okay, so today we are asking what might happen if we got serious about finding people and committing to doing real life together, like all of life. I'm Leslie, and this is Elevate, raising the bar on conversations for doing life together.
Change the dialogue. Sorting through the many perspectives takes work. The seemingly never-ending opinions can get noisy. But what if we choose to change our vantage point? Think bigger. Dig deeper. Change the dialogue. Discovering the truth above it all. It's time to elevate the conversation.
We made some new friends at Just Different Podcast, Darren and Jordan Starks. They talk all things faith, life, and culture. Check out their conversation on Life Together. Honestly, if you really like what you hear, you can check out some of their incredible other content on YouTube. Just search Just Different Podcast. Check it out.
All right, yo, what's up? It's your boy D Starks.
Artist.
You are now tuned in to the Just Different Podcast, where we talk everything faith, life, and culture. Let's get it.
Let's go.
We back. Episode 91. I'm ready. You ready?
Let's go.
To tap in and get into it. So, like I said, I'm really excited about this episode. We're partnering with Orange on this one, which is a company and collective of people, and their mission is to just align the church and families. One thing that we wanted to bring to the podcast today and really speak on is essentially how to live in community and what that looks like, doing it like authentically and in a genuine way with your friendships, with people you're letting into your life, and really walking your relationship with God out with.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into it, they had a few kind of just for fun rapid fire questions they wanted us to answer and get into. So we're going to start with those. I'm really excited to answer. But the first one is, this is for you. Name a celebrity / influencer friendship or collab that you love.
Let's see. I'm a big Marvel guy. Big Spider-Man guy, so I gotta take Zendaya and Tom Holland. You know what I'm saying?
What?
Zendaya and Tom Holland. I think they might be
dating.
dating.
They're a couple, right?
Yeah, but even just outside of that, they just go well together. In their interviews, and you be seeing them.
You watched an interview of them before
on Instagram.
I watched a clip on
no
TikTok.
one watches
That's
full
crazy.
interviews
That's
of
crazy.
actresses.
Okay, I'll take it. That's more of a couple. But
What about you?
It'd have to be. Man, yours is a lot more better than mine. Nobody's going to know mine, but it's these two people that have a podcast called $1 Million Worth of Game. They're older, though. Their names are Wallow and Gilly. They're cousins, and they work really well together.
That's
They're hilarious. Their
fact.
chemistry is insane. You can tell they really love each other.
That's a good answer.
You can see them do life together and all of that. So they kill it. I love that kind of like collab in that pair. But I'm a podcast fiend, so when I think about that, I could only think about podcasts with co-hosts. So yeah, I may have a better answer.
I think anyone else who knows them would agree with you, though.
Right,
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
So next question: what is your best friend's middle name?
Yeah, I saw this one. I don't know. I have no idea. The first thing that came to my head was Leon, though.
Bro, who's Leon?
I don't know.
Nah, I don't know either. I have no idea.
I don't know their middle names.
Are we L friends? Are we?
I don't know. I feel like that's a universal thing. I don't know if that's.
Do you really?
That
know
usually doesn't come up in conversation like that.
No, that's out the blue. Just what's your middle name?
Yeah. We've talked about community, the importance of like friendships platonically in terms of letting people into your life and how important that is to you in your relationship with God, how you're even moving in your purpose, what you're called to do day to day. But I think this kind of takes it to like a different level, because the one thing we hear a lot, and I used to say, like I always used to be in the position of like, it's like, yo, it's not that I don't want friends. I'm just trying to find them. Like, I don't know, how do you find like Christian friends? How do you get into community? What does that look like? Where do I go and find these people that are like-minded, that, you know, are really for real walking out with a relationship with God, right? And we have the same interest, and they're not out doing things that I'm not really trying to get into, all of that. Once you kind of maybe get into a position where you may find someone that you're potentially looking to, like, you know, let into your circle, or trying to decide how much of yourself you should give, or you're stepping into community for the first time, I think it's one of those things where you actually have to learn how to do life with people.
I mentioned this book I was reading in the previous episode called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which is a fire book. And this was actually one of the things that he was touching on, is sort of like that contrast of isolation and community, and like the importance of community, and how we've kind of drifted away from that. And he was talking about how we live in a day and age where I could wake up one day and go the entire day without saying a single word to anyone. Like, I can get all the things done on my to-do list I need to get done, and not have any type of interaction, communication, talk with any person. Facts. Right. And he said, in previous generations, you know, going back maybe 100 years or so, even maybe a little bit farther back, that wasn't really an option for them. Even when you think about, I guess, hunters and gatherers and things, like, you had to, just with your daily responsibilities and things you had to do, had to come together with people to like get food and prepare the food, and let's go build that and go do this. And you always had to be in a constant state of, you know, being in some sort of community. The things that we've been able to create, it all came on the back end of collaboration. Everything that you see, like this mic, the cameras that we're filming on, all of that came on the back end of collaboration with people. And seeing all the growth and advancement we've been able to achieve externally when we came together on one accord, imagine what the effects of collaboration are internally, because growth as a result of us coming together is just as true internally as it is externally. I think it's twofold in that sense. And I think that's the way that God created us.
Let's take this conversation a little bit higher and talk to an expert about all of this. Our friend Kayla Lynn is a licensed professional counselor with over 8 years of experience. She specializes in working with teenagers. Let's catch up on her conversation with me and Shane. Hey, what's up? We get to have an incredible conversation with an expert. We're here with our friend, and I want her to introduce herself. This is Kayla. Kayla, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, yes, thanks for having me. First off, my name is Kayla. I am a licensed professional counselor in the North Georgia area, or Metro Atlanta area. I love working with teens. I mainly worked with teens with self-esteem issues, suicidal ideation, self-harm, the whole gamut that comes together, depression, anxiety. But I love working with that age group and what they offer.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. I'd love to just dive in if that's cool. Okay, all right, let's do it. One of the things that comes to mind when we think about living life together is that in this day and age, people hoard like friends, followers, likes, engagements by like the hundreds of thousands. Like, it's just so typical nowadays, and especially for teenagers. So how do you differentiate between those types of relationships and real authentic best friends? Because I think we know it's not really possible to have like 1,000 real best friends. Right, so like, what makes a real authentic relationship?
Yeah, so there's a few pieces, and what I kind of use as a visual aid is like a target. So there's different circles in the target, and the closest target has very little space. So we know that it can only fit a few people. And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about authentic friendships, is we really want to look at that small group. And yes, there are the outside like friends or teammates or things like that, but they don't know the full gravity of us. And that's not what relationships we're talking about when we're talking about really authentic connection. So what we want to start with is that close circle. And really what you want to do is be really intentional about who's in that close circle. So I'll sometimes have students draw out a circle and who they want where, and honestly, who might need to move closer that we're a little afraid of doing that with, and who needs to kind of move out that's been too comfortable to do with. Because a lot of times too, we gravitate towards with people with the same struggle. And sometimes that can be really helpful, but that's not always healthy. Just because sometimes when the fuel just grows and grows, we kind of can spiral. So a few things that I typically ask students when they're trying to decide who should be in that little circle is who's going to celebrate you really well. Who isn't going to be happy or pleased secretly if you fail or if you fall or if you backtrack, because that can be really hard. And that's a maturity thing as well as a security thing. And that's going to be necessary for our healthy relationships, is that they aren't going to be secretly hoping that they can slide up while you go down. And the last thing is, who do you want to be like? Because a lot of times we generally will be the average of who we're surrounded with. And if we're not thinking highly of the person that we're surrounded with, then we're not going to be lifted up. Sorry, I'm going to add one more thing. Typically, I always ask is who's going to be honest with you, because those people who are willing to be honest and kind in those relationships are going to have the best intention for you currently and for your future. Yeah. So those are the things that I definitely would ask and what you would look for in that general circle. And that doesn't mean that we don't associate with people who are struggling or who really need help or who we want to be a good influence on whatsoever. We want to love those people well. We just don't want them to be in our core, because that can be really heavy as well as really hard in our own growth.
Yeah. Wow. Those are great questions.
That's amazing. Yeah. That gives me even so many things to think about. I'm like, the average of the people around, not just like, oh, I'm a lot like this person, a little bit like I'm kind of the average of all of this happening. So that's great. Incredible. So I'm going to jump to our next question, because I know we talk a lot about small group, or this idea of the people we meet and have a conversation with maybe at church, but maybe it's so much bigger than that. Like maybe doing life together isn't just about a 10-minute conversation after church or a 30-minute conversation after church, but how do we really bring this part of our relationship with Jesus into our full life? And so my question is, what's the impact that having close relationships have on our spiritual lives, especially when it comes to following Jesus?
Yeah, totally. So I kind of want to start with is that we're developing patterns now in our relationships. And so what patterns we develop generalize. So what patterns we have socially or authentically with the people that we're close to, we're generally going to generalize to God and Jesus in our relationship with him. So if we're not authentic and if we feel shame about who we are, or not fully feeling open to share, then we're going to hold back with God too. And we know that God knows everything about us and everything that we've done, but that typically looks like avoidance. So instead of engaging in a relationship with him, we feel shame and fear that we're not all put together yet. So once I get this done, or once I stop doing this, or once I start reading the Bible more or whatever, then I can have a more authentic relationship with Jesus. But that's not the case. And honestly, one of my favorite concepts that Brené Brown teaches, she's a big social worker who does a ton of research. She talks about the concept of to be fully loved, to feel fully loved, we have to feel fully known. And so when we are holding back the cost of feeling fully loved. And the reason being is because if I'm holding back something that I'm scared somebody is going to walk away from, then there's almost a fake security of them being my friend. If I'm holding back, well, if they knew this about me or my past or who I am, and they might not accept me for that, then there's a limited amount of connection and depth that I can have with that friendship, if that makes sense. So there's that cost to holding ourselves back. So spiritually, we want to feel fully loved. So we want to be able to come to Jesus, come to God, and talk to him about anything, to go and say, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. Will you be in relationship with me? And that's really where we want to start authentic connection. I want to acknowledge in our culture and in relationships, there's a risk. There's a risk to both sides of isolation, and there's a risk that we all know of judgment. There is a risk of, if I open up, this person might leave. This person might judge me. They might think of me differently. They might not see me the same anymore. They might tell somebody. I mean, that's a big one. So there's so many risks that we think about that holds us back, but we do not also calculate the risk of isolation, which is what I see a lot of in my work. Is a lot of people are coming to me and slowly we're opening up and talking about these things that they've been holding in. And a lot of that cost has been their self-worth, has been suicidal ideation that comes, has been cutting in order to get it out in some way, shape, or form. So there's always going to be a cost to isolation too.
One more question, if that's okay. This is more kind of like quick tip question to get really practical on this topic. I'd love to know one tip that you give to teens or 20-somethings about doing life together. Like, what's just a simple tip that would help them out?
Yeah, I would honestly just say don't wait. I would say go ahead, start. It doesn't have to be everything. It can just like slowly build, but slowly engage intentionally in relationships. Open up intentionally with people who are safe. A lot of times we think, oh, when I start college, then that's when I will start opening up or having closer friendships or deeper connections. When I get married, that's the person who I'll like talk to. When I start work in my career, those are the people I'm going to be like with all the time. Like that's who I'll connect with. But honestly, we're practicing now, like I said at the beginning, what our relationships are like. And as I hope that, once that job comes or once, college comes or whatever next is, that you'll automatically have those habits.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's almost like New Year's resolutions. Like, I hope June or January 1st, not June, I don't even know what I'm thinking. I hope that January 1st, you will all of a sudden have all of the discipline, all of the skills, all of the character to be able to carry out your goals. Yeah. But it takes practice. Yeah. And I think we forget that socially, that it's a practiced skill that we continually have to exercise.
That's great. I wish I would have thought about that more.
I know.
As a teenager. I think that's so wise.
Yeah, part of what I hear you saying though is that because it's something we can practice, it's something we can get better at, like friendships and doing life together, something that has potential to grow. And
that's really hopeful. Yeah, that excites me. That's really helpful and really hopeful perspective. So we're really grateful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with us.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's continue to elevate our perspective on this topic. When it comes to following Jesus, the time we spend with our small groups is so important. So, what does it take to have a really great small group experience? Kennedy is going to walk us through it.
What's up? I'm Kennedy. Some things are scarier when you have to do them alone. Just think about it for a second. Haunted houses, presenting in front of your class, or trying out for a team are all scarier without friends. Okay, so for my birthday one year, one of my best friends moved to Nevada, and my other best friend suggested that we should go and see that best friend. But I am scared of planes. But my best friend who was here in Georgia with me decided to book the tickets, book our seats right beside each other, and held my hand the whole time. And in that, I realized that planes were a lot less scarier when I had somebody there to hold my hand through it. Things are simply better and less frightening when we can live life together with other people. And church is the same way. We're not saying that faith is scary or frightening, but there are parts of it that are confusing. It's easy and natural to deal with doubts and struggles. All of that is less intimidating if you don't have to face it alone. And that's one of the reasons we have small groups. We don't want church to just be a sit and listen to the lecture experience. It's not a monologue from the stage. We want it to be a dialogue, a conversation between you and other people. We want it to be a place where you can live life together alongside other people. The concept of small groups sounds nice, but I recognize that it might not be everybody's favorite. Maybe you're not even sure why we do them. You may not be into your small group, and for good reason. For example, maybe you already have friends. You might be thinking, I don't need a small group. I have my people. Why do I have to be friends with people at church? It feels forced. Or maybe you don't like some of the people in your group. Look, We get it. We don't just assume that if we put a group of people in the same group, they're all of a sudden going to be best friends. Sometimes people annoy people. Sometimes people don't have anything in common. Sometimes people struggle with personality differences. Sometimes you may even wonder, am I supposed to fit in with this group? Or are they supposed to fit in with me? Either way, something is just, well, a little off. Or maybe for some of you, it's that you don't trust some of the people in your group. Maybe you like most of the people in your group, but you don't necessarily trust them. You're pretty sure that if you share something deep and personal, someone would make a joke, or someone would talk about it outside of the group. You simply don't know the people in your group well enough. You don't know what they say or do outside of the group. Being open, honest, and vulnerable sounds good, but you're not sure if you can trust the people in your group. Maybe you feel judged. Look, maybe you feel like your history or your reputation isn't the best. You have made some mistakes in your past. Or maybe you are new to church, or you don't know much about Christianity or the Bible, or maybe you're not even sure what you think about this whole religion thing. If you were really, really honest, you'd admit that you're a little nervous to speak up. You wonder things like, what if I sound stupid? What if I don't know what I'm talking about? Or you think, I can't say anything in small group. I'm not well behaved enough. No matter how much we say from stage that it doesn't matter what you've done, you're always welcomed in small group, we still get that it's difficult to truly believe that message. Maybe you don't want to talk to people. Maybe you're not much of a talker in any situation, or maybe you feel like you come to church to connect with God. You don't have to talk to other people to do that. It's not that you think it's bad or wrong. You just hate it when you're talking and other people are looking at you. So, small group is actually kind of nerve-wracking for you. Again, we totally get it. This list could go on. Maybe it's a different reason. Maybe you find yourself in small group wondering, what are we supposed to be doing here? Or counting the minutes until you can leave and go get something to eat. You may not even go. Instead, after service ends, you bounce because the small group time just isn't your thing. Sometimes you may simply wonder, what's the point of small group? That's what we're going to talk about the next few minutes. Let's start by taking it all the way back to the very beginning, like the very beginning. You may have heard of the very first chapter of the very first book in the Bible, Genesis. It starts with, in the beginning, God created, followed by a whole chapter listing all the things God created and how God ranked each thing. When God created light, God labeled it good. When God created the sky, he said it was good. The land and its plants, good. The sun and the moon, good. The animals in the ocean and in the sky, good. The animals on the land, you guessed it, good. When God looked at his creation in human form, this is what he said. It is not good for the man to be alone. Did you catch it? The first not good thing in all of creation was being alone. What's my point? Here it is. We are wired to not be alone. We are designed for connection. We are made to do life together with other people, but you know that already because you know what your friendships mean to you. You can tell that you're wired for connection by the way you feel that weird disappointment when you FaceTime your friend and they don't answer. You can tell you're wired for connection by the way when something good happens to you, you almost immediately send a text to that one friend. You know you're wired for connection by the way you feel when something terrible or unexpected happens and you just need someone to talk to. So, why does small group matter if you already have friends? Small group matters because your spiritual growth matters. This is more than just somebody to hang out with or snap with. This is secure, unfailing acceptance and connection with others. There's another place in scripture where we see how important going through life together is. The author of Hebrews had something to say about this in a letter to some of the first Christians trying to figure all this out. Check it out. Let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. Don't miss this. This is a big deal. The writer of Hebrews is talking to Jewish Christians, which basically meant they could be facing either execution or excommunication. That just means exclusion from their community because of their beliefs in Jesus. This wasn't just saying, hey, if it's not too much to ask, could you skip gaming for a night and make some time to come to small group? No. This ask from the writer of Hebrews was saying meeting together consistently is worth the risk of putting your life on the line. For them, these were hard times. The writer of Hebrews stresses, don't give up meeting together. Why? Because we know at least two things happen when we meet together. First, hope happens when we meet together. What is hope? It's being convinced that our future is better than our now. And we all need that. Without hope, we don't end racism, we don't fight global warming, and we don't rescue the abused. Without hope, instead of finding a reason to fight for what's good and right, we let evil make itself at home in our world. The hope that things can be different is what motivates us to act. And it isn't just hope for the world. When we meet together, it reminds us that there is hope for our own lives, hope for better days ahead, hope that next week might be better than this week. And second, meeting together teaches us that love and good deeds happen when we meet together. We make each other better. We make each other stronger. Another writer said it in this way when he said, iron sharpens iron. Meaning we can make each other better. Meeting together calls us up and holds us accountable to set a higher standard of who we imagine we can become. And maybe the most important phrase in that whole passage is not giving up. The writer of Hebrews knew that it would be super tempting to skip the living life together part of following Jesus. The author knew that meeting together would require commitment and sacrifice. Showing up and connecting requires reprioritizing your schedule and guarding the time you get with your group. Meeting together doesn't always seem easy when there are other things you could be doing. And I'm not just talking about meeting together with the other high schoolers in your group. In fact, a lot of the book of Hebrews is devoted to the idea of having a leader, a person who knows God and is a little further along than you in your life. The truth is, we all need somebody, an adult somebody, outside of our families who can help us figure out life. That's what your leader signed up to be, and here's what's wild about this group of adults. They actually want to do this. They signed up for real conversations about your real life. They don't need a fake or perfect version of you. They signed up to be here every week for the real you. Here's what I'm getting at. This idea of community in Hebrews is more than just a group of friends. This wasn't your average group of friends watching football together or the people you make TikToks with. This was ride or die. These were the kinds of friends and leaders who encourage you, cheer for you, say the real stuff to you, listen when you say the real stuff to them, love you enough to tell you what's real even if you don't want to hear it, stick up for you when someone talks bad about you or tries to hurt you. This is bigger than hanging out. This is what we call community. And here's the deal. The people who were meeting together in the original church, they weren't all alike. They weren't all friends before they came to church. They didn't all agree on every little thing. In fact, if I can be real with you for a second, part of being a mature person is understanding you don't have to be like people to love them. I know some of you are thinking, yeah, but my small group sounds nothing like that. But imagine with me for a second, what if it could? What would it take? The fact is, what's said in this verse can be true of your small group experience. Think about it. Meeting together, motivating each other towards love and good works, and encouraging each other can be your reality. But let's be honest, you have to be willing to put something into it. In other words, when it comes to your small group, you get out what you put in. Either your small group experience in high school will be great or it won't. And this isn't something your leader can do for you. Ultimately, your group experience will be what you and your group decide it will be. And here's why that matters so much. The quality of your high school years will be impacted for better or worse by your small group. What you put in here affects every other area of your life. I can introduce you to graduate after graduate who looks back on their years in high school and tells a story of their small group being where the best memories happened, the toughest conversations happened, the most important moments happened. I can also introduce you to graduates who would say the opposite. For them, it was 1 hour a week in a group of people who weren't real, didn't really care about each other, and ultimately it didn't affect them. Both are possible, and both are ultimately up to you. But how? What could and should we put into our small group experience? I'm sure there's a lot, but let's start with a few things. Be present. Commit to showing up for small group every week. Give it a chance. Be open to what could possibly happen. You never know what you could get out of the time you spend with your group. If only you invest the time. You know the difference between the parts of life where you can actually try and actually care versus the parts of life where you pretend to try and pretend to care. Don't pretend in small group. Try to give it your all and see what happens. It's important to be present. Next, create a safe place. This is not about being nice. This is about being real. What happens when you're in a place where you know what you said will be talked about later by the people in small group? You say less. You pretend more. In a way, you become fake because you feel as if you have to be. And I just think high school provides enough fake places with fake people. You don't need more of that. You need a place where you can be safe enough to be real. But this isn't something that doesn't happen naturally. This is something you plan for and you fight for daily. This is something you call out when somebody does or shares after group in a way that makes group time an unsafe place. A real safe place is possible, but it takes a fierce commitment to protecting the safety of your group. And lastly, make it personal. Remember, you get out what you put in. You can't expect somebody to share if you don't share as well. You have to make the effort to get to know people and to care about them too. Send the text. Start the conversation. Sit with someone from your group and service who you don't normally sit with. Don't pretend like you don't know each other at school. Welcome somebody new in the group. Be willing to talk it out when you need to, even when it's hard. What's the point? The point is that we were made for more than surface level relationships. We were made for a real relationship with God that we experience with other people in a very real way. We can literally alter our experience at church and ultimately grow our relationship with God by altering the investment we put into small group. Maybe this sounds like something you want. Maybe, knowing your current small group, it seems impossible. But just imagine with me, what if this was your small group experience? How different could your high school years look if you had a group of people who were always showing up for each other, safe and real with one another, who knew you, the real you, people who were living life together? That's what small group can be. Whether that's true for your small group is entirely up to you. And that's what we want you to talk about when we meet this week. Because when it comes to small group, you get out what you put in.